in the medical field, endometriosis, something like that has not been studied in women due to so little women being in the medical field. Cars, the seatbelt is made specially for the male body. They're only tested with male mannequins. And I was just wondering, without affirmative action, how do you think we can bring these people in to bring a variety of opinions?
You have 3 white men around you. You can see 1, 2, 3. If one supports affirmative action,
Right.
it would mean that you would be okay turning to those 3 men and saying, I deserve the position more than you based on something that doesn't matter more
Not
than something that does
necessarily.
matter.
This is going to be a really interesting conversation where Charlie Kirk debates a young college female student who's in engineering. Of course, she's going to come up here as a know-it-all and give out all these ridiculous answers that are completely off. And this is why this is important, is because you need to see what a college education is doing for our young people and how dogmatic the left is, especially with young college women. Check this video out. This is a good one. Make sure you like to subscribe.
Hi, Charlie.
You are right. I will. 1 sec. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just have a question kind of based on affirmative action. I'm a computer engineer here at UW-Madison. I'm about to graduate. And there's a lot that I've found through research and just general, I guess, my studies. Not only does affirmative action help, minorities, people of color, but also women in general. And there's a lot of facets of engineering, the medical system, and other factors that, because of affirmative action, have helped. I'll just go into something. For example, let's say in the medical field, endometriosis, something like that has not been studied in women due to so little women being in the medical field. Also, for example, cars, the seatbelt is made specially for the male body. They're only tested with male mannequins, so a lot of women are in risk of dying in car crashes at a higher rate. There's a lot of things that benefit from a diverse group of people, both in engineering and medical fields and education and other facets of the systems. And I was just wondering, without affirmative action, how do you think we can bring these people in to bring a variety of opinions?
Yeah, no, I mean,
views?
just have a meritocracy, right? So you have 3 white men around you. You can see 1, 2, 3. So if one supports affirmative, no, it's okay. If one supports affirmative action,
Right.
it would mean that you would be okay turning to those 3 men and saying, I deserve the position more than you based on something that doesn't matter more than something that does
necessarily.
matter.
I feel like that's one facet of it that we're not also paying attention to, is that people that are graduating from the same schools. They're graduating with the same degrees.
With lower test scores, though, much lower. Every study of affirmative action, for example, the Harvard case showed that it was nearly 40% lower test scores for people of color versus their white male counterparts and Asian counterparts.
And so how
at
can
some point,
is that why would that happen? Do you think
why?
it's yeah?
Why
What
would
causes
happen?
that? Do you think it's just because
Well,
people of color are more stupid?
No,
or,
of course not.
Right.
I mean, people of color come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds that don't prioritize education as
So
much.
how do we
But
fix
that's
those
not,
socioeconomic statuses?
Right, that's an interesting point. Not should we try to penalize white males that are competent to go run our systems and our institutions. So
Right.
those are 2 different things.
Right.
So what we're doing is our institutions are now becoming less excellent. Our country is not working like it used to because we basically told people that are very qualified and very competent that, sorry, we're not going to put a position for you here. For example, the U.S. Secret Service. Let me just give you one example, okay? We can all agree that protecting a president, whether it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, is super important, right? But now the Secret Service has said that we want to have 30% of all our agents be women, which, by the way, they have lower fitness criteria. So they have less pull-ups, less push-ups, slower mile time.
that's something that's due to your
Hold on.
genetics.
Exactly. Yeah. No. But this is affirmative action, right? And so therefore, when
there's fields I don't think that's a good. One second. I just don't think that's a good example because women will never be as strong as men, at least genetically.
So that's an interesting question.
So I think it should be something
will
more
women be
ideologically based.
Will women be as good at engineering as men, person for person?
Not necessarily, but
okay. Well, then how is that different than the Secret Service example?
Well, the problem is that
because the male mind is wired differently than the female mind. By the way, men will never be as good. Hold on, I'll prove it to you. Men will never be as good at counseling or psychology sessions as women. Men will never be good at nursing or elementary school education as women. We have certain giftings because our brain is wired a certain way. Women are far better gifted at micro topics, so individual connection, empathetic type conversations, healing people that past trauma and wound. Men are much better at macro topics, right? Trying to build a building, put a skyscraper up, trying to talk geopolitics, and I'll prove it to you. when you go and you see 5 women eating lunch, they're probably talking about micro topics, conversations they had, relationships, friendships. Men, they're talking about politics, sports, or the stock market.
That's not necessarily
Oh,
true.
yes. You guys all agree, right?
I mean, there's a reason
No,
I'm
no, these
here.
these are bimodal general truths, right? Of course there's exceptions, but
It's not
if you,
a general truth, though. I feel like women have the capability of
course they do,
having
but it's
political
not-
conversations.
Of course they do,
and-
but it's not the general wiring or nature
It's
of women.
not. There's no wiring for your brain to like Donald Trump. Like, that's not a real thing, I
Hold
feel
on,
like.
but wait a second. But do you think that men and women are made different in our brains? In our
Certain things, but not necessarily. It doesn't, like channel
what-
you
like
to be
what
a
things?
specific thing.
like
Huh?
what things?
Well, like there's like specific wirings to, like produce certain types of hormones, and that's like differences that are genetically.
So you don't think that men are more likely to like contact sports, more likely to enjoy football, UFC, hunting?
I think that's because of a societal norm in general. Like over
you
a lot
really
of
no,
time.
come on, you're smarter than that. That's not true.
Well,
hold on. So why is it
There's
that
women that play football, so like you can't just
of
say
course,
that.
and there
so
are
that's
men
an
that dress
example
in
of women
drag,
that
but
don't
those
do
are
that.
those are not
Sorry.
the general truth of it. So let me just be clear. You think that there's nothing within the female brain in its constitution that makes young ladies more likely?
I mean, being that I'm an engineer, I don't think so. No. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I feel like there's.
So you think if you pick a random lady here that they'd be just as comfortable sitting and watching a 4-hour football game than they were to go get their hair done with their best girlfriend?
Well, I feel like that's kind of diminishing to say, oh, because you're a woman, you will not be able to sit through a 4-hour
But
football
is it,
field.
is it diminishing to say a man wouldn't want to go get his hair done? No,
No, I'm sure you get your hair done, right?
not really. It's like 10 minutes in and out, like
Okay,
barbershop.
but you still do it. It's.
But the point, again, there are certain things that women will take more seriously. For example, women will take a lot longer getting ready for the day than men.
Yeah.
Right? Why?
Because we're held to higher standards to
No,
look pretty.
no.
For example, your hair. How short is your hair? It's super short. Mine, it's gonna take longer
What,
to
do,
dry.
do you wear
right?
makeup?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you want to look pretty, and it takes.
Yeah, that's not important to me because I'm a man.
Well, right. But who
But
made
you-
you
but
feel
there's
that
something
way?
in your
but you
wiring-
feel comfortable
No,
not
no,
wearing
it's not
makeup
as- it-
because of a certain reason.
Well, but you wouldn't feel comfortable wearing makeup?
I can not wear makeup.
But why do you do it?
I mean, like right now, I'm not wearing like anything really.
No, I know, but that's the point is that at some point you wear makeup because there's something within your wiring that says, I want to be presentable to the world. And that wiring, honestly, is I want to find a mate to have
I mean,
children.
this question was about affirmative action. I think we're
No,
getting
no,
kinda
it's
off
not.
the
It's actually
subject.
really important because I don't think there's any differences between races, but I think that when it comes to affirmative action, we're saying that there are differences.
Right.
That we're trying to say that things that don't matter should matter. So I don't think race matters.
Sometimes it's so shocking to see that people like this exist, and there's many of them who exist, and they are specifically prevalent on the left. This young lady makes an argument about seatbelts and how they're designed for men, and is an example of affirmative action needing to be put into play. First of all, the two things are not correlated, and the fact that women get hurt by seatbelts, as far as I'm concerned, has a lot to do with their biology. The seatbelt is a very primitive piece of equipment, even though there's supposedly a lot of engineering that goes into it. It's basically a sideways V. It connects from the top to the bottom and it goes across your lap. It's not much to it. What I do believe is the fact that women have a higher chance of getting hurt in a car accident, not because of the seatbelt. Even if we take the seatbelt out of it, I would guarantee that women still would get hurt in car accidents at way higher opportunities than men because of the physical stature that women have, in which they are not as prominent in their stature or strong and resilient like how men are. The example of the Secret Service, she didn't even want to get into because she said, well, of course, that's obvious, but what about engineering? Then he makes the example about engineering, and she says she doesn't think that there's much differences when it comes to men and women when it comes to engineering. And he's like, well, what do you think about that? I mean, so you mean there's no differences between men? Look at the fact that when men are in groups, they're watching sports, talking about stocks, talking about the UFC, while women are in groups, they talking about each other, friends and family. And her argument was that wasn't true. And then when he later asked her again that you don't think that men watch sports at higher rates than women do? And then she says, well, yes, I do, which she switches her whole point. But then she says it's because of societal norms, which is absolutely ridiculous. So us as men, we only watch sports because society forces us to? Stuff like this is absolutely sick. The fact that people like this exist and the fact that she's an engineer saying these ridiculous things is very alarming. I hope you're liking this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. And let's continue this debate. Charlie Kirk just destroying this young college student.
Affirmative action says race
What
does
about
matter.
like women also in fields like that? Like what I
Well,
explained
I
earlier.
think that's even more dangerous, to be honest with you. If like we're going to say that women should be Secret Service agents protecting Trump.
Not Secret Service. I'm talking about medicine, engineering, that type of
Well,
thing.
hold on. Okay, so should we try to have the same amount of female to male OBGYNs?
I think it should
Hold on.
be similar to the amount of like
OBGYNs, though.
the general
So
population.
hold on. 85% of all OBGYNs are female.
Yeah.
So now should we have parity so that men
I have an OBGYN that's a man. That's not a problem.
That's not the point. The point is should we have parity?
I think it should be similar to like whatever the
Got it. Okay. So you're consistent. So women studying in the OBGYN field will be actively discriminated against. So a man can, because we must have parity.
It's not about people in the OBGYN specifically. It's about people in general. Men were, like, for example, women were not able to vote until like less than 100 years ago, basically, right?
What does that have to do with
One
the
second.
field?
So because of that, a lot of the laws, a lot of everything that's set in place was made by men, was excluding women, was creating like reforms and like certain legislations that would specifically, support men rather than women because
Or
women don't have that ability.
Or support society. I don't think it was always about
Well,
supporting
for example,
men.
like what about what I brought up, endometriosis, so like the seatbelt accident, like all this stuff is due because we tend to favor men in specific.
Well, so I just don't believe that. First of all, because
mean,
research
I
will go
can
where the money
show
is,
you,
and
but-
so if there was money in endometriosis research,
Not much because
well,
men
that's
don't
why.
care.
So maybe it wasn't sexism. Maybe it was a monetary explanation.
Well, who has the money in a society?
Well, actually, women
usually?
control more money than men in the country.
But women weren't able to have bank accounts until like less than 100 years ago, so they can't really build that generational wealth.
Do you think it's been a better thing with women's liberation the last 20, 30 years?
Yeah, I would
Do
be.
you think that's interesting? Do you think women are happier in America today than they were 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Then why are they the most depressed group in the history of the species? Women are the most miserable they've ever been. Like, why is that?
I don't think that's because we're allowed to have money.
No, I'm
now, or
asking.
because
I'm
of-
asking but it's like more liberation, more college degrees, more birth control, less
I
marriage.
would
less
argue
kids.
otherwise. I don't know where you got that data.
No,
that, we're
everybody
more
agrees that
depressed.
women are super miserable. As far as versus 30 years ago.
Well, it could be the fact that because women weren't able to go to a psychologist or like before.
Or maybe it's because they're not doing the one thing that they want to do, which is to get married and have children.
Yeah, she's saying that no, it's actually opposite. It's saying that women actually says women around the world report higher levels of life satisfaction than men, but at the same time report more daily stress.
Yeah,
so we're just held to
type in women antidepressant use 2024. It is the highest it has ever been.
But there's like more layers to it than that. It can't just be that. You have
Is
to
there?
look at why are women more likely to go and talk to a psychologist. There's the differences in that.
So, but I'm just curious. So, do you think women are generally happier in 2024 than they were in 1964?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I just had the question of how would you want to fix that? Just
There's no problem to fix. Pure meritocracy.
no, I'm just saying like how do you bring people with diverse opinions?
Oh yeah, I mean I don't care that much about. I care about excellence.
So like women, like you used to be
I
studying
don't
into
care
stuff
about
like
putting women in
endometriosis
STEM.
and
I
stuff
care
like
about being
that.
a strong
No, I'm talking
and-
about like being able to like look into those type of things, like endometriosis, like all this stuff. How do we make that
that's-
safer for
those
other
are-
people without bringing people that care about it?
Not that important to me. I want the country we once had,
Oh.
which was the greatest country ever, where we put excellence and we put superior intellect above like sensitive racial politics. Not interesting to me.
Okay.
Because it was a bunch of white men that were like running the country, and all of a sudden we've
I'm
decided.
not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just
no,
saying
good.
that.
Like that's fine. I mean, but when we used to have a country that was based on merit, we were more successful, and we were a better run country, and we're objectively not now.
Yeah.
We're a country
I'm just
can't
saying that in
we can't even
engineering, there's
protect
a
the
lot
president
of-
from getting shot.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts in engineering that because we don't have a diverse look of opinions, then we are putting we're putting certain people into more danger, like women in cars. That's like one example.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
All right. Thanks. You're voting for Trump?
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I can't.
Yeah, well, you lied to get a hat, and that shows your
I
character.
didn't lie. I said I would wear it. You said if you wear it.
I said
you
only
have
if you
it.
vote, but that's fine. All right, next question.
Listen, as we very easily see here, this young lady just has no points at all. You know, Charlie Kirk really goes in on her in a polite way, but intellectually slams her to pieces. She's all over the place, hitting on mispoint after mispoint. She, one particular thing Charlie Kirk asked her, where he asked her about women's happiness, and she didn't know anything about women's happiness at all. She believes that women are more happy today than they were in the past, which the data on that is absolutely positively wrong. Since the 1960s, women happiness has been declining drastically, and she doesn't even know the data. When it came to somebody next to her asking about life satisfaction, they used some data about life satisfaction amongst women around the world. And yes, if you look at life satisfaction around the world, women are generally happier than men for biological reasons of birthing children and being happy with having children. But in the West, in America, that is not true at all. If you look at the data in the West, it shows that in America, women have dramatically lower life satisfaction in comparison to men in modern day. And it's not even close. Women are not happier than men, and they're not happier than they've ever been in the 60s in America. And this is why Charlie Kirk, before the video ended, he asked her one more question. So you mean to tell me that women are happier more than men? And she said, yes, I think that. So you think women are more happier now than before? She says, yes. And he said, okay, yeah, whatever. It's good. And she obviously, he was dismissing her, but she wanted to ask her another question, and he let her. But she has no idea what she's talking about. Also, she talked about women are more likely to go to psychologists. Well, some of that is true and some of it is not. Women are not more likely to go to psychologists. It's actually, data has showed that 50% of women who suffer from mental health issues feel like they don't have to go to a therapist. They shouldn't go to a therapist. So they actually don't. A lot of women with mental illness actually believe the fact that they feel mentally ill or have mental illness problems is actually normal. So there's a significantly high amount of women who actually don't go seek mental health therapy for various reasons. So this fact that women go to therapy at high rates, well, yes, they do, but it's because they're suffering from illnesses at higher rates than men are. So it's natural that they're going to be there more than men. And typically, women actually don't even go to therapy for help. Women go to therapy to ruminate, to complain and talk about their problems. They're actually not there trying to seek help, but they just more so want to vent. And therapy sessions for women are more so co-rumination sessions rather than sessions that are using some form of self-benefiting factors. Hope you like this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. See you on the next video.